Well, hi there. Hi there. Welcome to Art in Focus. I apologize for, I guess I'm only a minute late, but go figure, on the night that I'm presenting, our YouTube live feed didn't work. So I was scrambling to figure out if I could update the key for streaming live, but it just won't work. So I guess there's no sense in apologizing to anybody who's trying to watch via YouTube because they can't see us anyhow. So I want to thank Joe Rowan again for the theme music you heard while we were waiting to start the webinar tonight, the Art in Focus event. Somebody raised their hand but already put it down. I'm not sure. We'll get to that a little later, I guess. Because I'm going to end up embedding this in our website via YouTube Live, or not YouTube Live, I do want to apologize to anybody who might watch this later and see that they, when they tried to watch it on YouTube in the first place. So like I said, thank you to Joe Rowan. Thank you to our sponsor for the event, Community Healthcare. I don't really have a lot to say today before we launch into our presentation for the evening. I have one announcement. That's really it. I just wanted to let everybody know that the Indiana Arts Commission's on-ramp program for this year is going to be a little different than it has been in the past. It's going to be in 5 different locations across the state rather than one location, and administered by the IAC. South Shore Arts is a lead partner for the on-ramp program that's happening up here in Northwest Indiana. We're working on that with a local artist named Sam Love, as well as the Society of Innovators at Purdue Northwest. More information will be forthcoming, but what I can say is that sometime next week, there will be sort of an interest form that you can fill out if you or anybody you know is interested in joining this program. That'll be, you'll be able to reach that via the homepage of our website. And also, there'll be some information about the program if you're not familiar with it. It's a program that is meant for artists who are looking to sort of figure out how to make their practice part of their livelihood, whether it's a business or how to make some of their big projects happen that are in their head, like something that they want to try that they might not have the resources to get done. And so it helps support artists on their path to becoming more professional or making it part of their career. The other thing I will say is that pre-interest form that we are going to be putting on our website, that is not the application form. The formal applications open on May 10th, but this is just a way for us to start generating interest and also maybe answer questions ahead of time so that anybody who is interested can put together a better application or feel more comfortable with the application process. So be looking for that information. We'll push it out on social media, and I'm sure that I'll talk about it again at Art in Focus next time. So with tonight, Art in Focus features, somebody sent me something and is extremely narrow. Oh, okay, somebody sent us a question about their.
It's just your head.
It's just my head.
Yeah.
Lou can see those. So I guess Lou's jumping the gun. He got a little tired of hearing me talk. I'm gonna quickly introduce Lou because I have a little anecdote I want to tell now that he's on the screen. Lou and I met each other at Indiana University when he was a graduate student in printmaking and I was a undergraduate in printmaking. And I only saw Lou kind of around a shop initially. I didn't really know anything about him. He seemed kind of cool. I think he one time talked about like a Ben Shahn essay that I had read. I'm like, oh, I read that essay. So he must be kind of cool. Maybe he's worth being friends with. Well, at any rate, I had a friend who was also an undergrad who took a silkscreen course. And at the time, Lou was a graduate assistant in silkscreen and he was a shop manager for that program. And we were talking about like that Lou Joseph guy we saw around the print shop. And I was like, yeah, I think he's pretty cool. And my friend Heather said, yeah, I was driving the other day, and like I pulled up at a stoplight and Lou was next to me in his car. And the dude was just totally rocking out, like oblivious to the world. And I was like, I made a note to myself that day, like, I think I've got to like try to hang out with this Lou guy, even though he's a graduate student.
I mean, that would have been my Cutlass Sierra. There's really no other way to drive in a Cutlass Sierra. I mean, just full on air guitars. You know, that makes sense.
I believe you were headbanging and drumming, but
Okay.
we'll leave it at that. So I'm not going to really introduce Lou, since, you know, it would feel kind of weird for me to do so. And also he's here, and
I'm here.
I'm going to give him this opportunity to also just sort of talk about whatever he wants to talk about, but including his job in addition to being an artist.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess Lou Joseph. I currently work at the Baltimore Office of Promotion and Arts. I manage a prize program called the Sondheim Prize. That's a $25,000 art prize for artists, and also a travel prize and Scholastic Art Prize. So it's mostly prizes and competitions that I work on. Sometimes I've worked in the past on public art too. And I'm also director of ICA Baltimore, which is a artist-run space. And I have to remember to keep looking at the camera so I don't look so shifty. That focuses on solo artist shows. And actually the first show was mine in 2011. So it's been almost 10 years, or a little over 10 years now, of around about 35 or 36 exhibitions, all solo, almost all solo shows. We have a flat file and some other programs too. It's all volunteer run, sort of side project. And then I also live in Baltimore with my wife Miriam and my son Gabe, and have a studio that I'm in now in my basement, where we've lived for the last 5 years or so. And so yeah, I do maintain a studio practice, but I do feel like, I think Mike and I were talking about this just before we got on the call, but like yeah, we both maintain practices, but also do spend a fair amount of our time doing art admin work, which I think being an artist helps to inform that work and treat artists well and things like that. Although I don't know if it's helped me figure out what to do with my art career, as it were. Yeah, I guess that's me so far.
I like that. Just like, you know, it's going to be relevant later in our talk, but you've got your priority mail boxes there right over your shoulder.
Yeah, gotta keep them handy.
But yeah, so I mean, most people, I guess, who are tuning in, who are familiar with South Shore Arts at this point, know who I am. But yeah, Lou and I were just talking about this right now. Like, you know, I think some people know I do stuff. I don't think a lot of people know what it looks like. They might have like an abstract idea that Micah spends his like home time making things. So like predominantly my practice is woodworking and cartooning, which you'll kind of see the cartooning aspect come through in some of the work that we'll share. But you know, I don't do anything else that's quite like what I do with Lou, with it's like so much painting and like it's like really open-ended in a way that maybe we'll talk about how that's like helpful to my practice overall, where so much of my other practice is like just very focused on what I'm going to do and the outcome. But yeah, so this is the first time after working for South Shore Arts for about 3 years now that people will really, with the exception of a few glimpses here and there, see what it is I work on in my spare time, and maybe that will bring up more questions about who I am versus like answers. So I'm gonna share my screen, Lou. Do you want me to share with the?
Share your screen.
You want me to share the screen, Lou?
Yeah, do it.
All right, share the screen. So, oh, I'm on the wrong part of the screen, but we're gonna share it anyway. So let's go up. Maybe if somebody could just give me like a sense, like, does this look good? Is it too weird? Does it look good?
Yeah.
We opted to show stuff via our website. And I guess that comes with some drawbacks. Like, so we're going to try not to scroll too much and make you ill. We kind of know where we're going in it, so we think it'll work. This is a page on the website that doesn't really, it probably will come down today, but for the purposes of this talk, So the early days are where Lou and I met in Bloomington. And so this is a space that my senior year in the undergraduate printmaking program, I rented this space for several months. And in addition to kind of hosting my culminating exhibition, I asked, several other people, Lou included, to kind of come in and do their own exhibition. There's some reasons I'm sharing it. It's not really a retrospective of like all the work I've ever made, especially the work I made when I was 21 and the work Lou made when he was in his mid-20s. But I think some of the things that were happening then, me and Lou meeting each other, some of the projects Lou started, and some of the kind of aesthetics that kind of define my work kind of are relevant to where our collaborative practice are going. So I'm just going to flip through. This is the building I rented. This is young Micah with a beard standing in front of it. And this was the exhibition I put on. There were lots of building blocks, but I think of note especially are sort of how I made sort of like a thing that was in my head when I was 10 years old, right? Like I wanted to make a toy. I wanted it to be packaged. I wanted to design every aspect of it. I wanted people to collect it, and I wanted it to look like it was a store. And, I had my reasons then. They probably were kind of close to what I was trying to do, but I think, the more I make stuff, there was definitely a reason that I chose this aesthetic, and I probably didn't know it at the time. And so here's just a couple quick shots of those building blocks. And those were the little building blocks. There were big foam blocks that you might have seen as well. And that was a free thing that I shared. But Lou had a show in there. And I kind of just shared this image, Lou, because I wanted to show people little Lou.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that's okay.
I was much shorter then.
Yeah, you were growing still.
Yeah.
So do you want to say anything about, I don't know if the show has any relevance to anything. I just wanted to throw in.
I think it's actually one interest, if you skip ahead a slide, is that it's definitely representative of sort of I wouldn't say a goth aesthetic, but definitely like spare repetition sort of stuff that I was sort of into in grad school, which is, I guess, more interesting in retrospect now, knowing, I think, like my own work and the work we're doing together. There's just way more color and way more weird things in it, and that it's, I don't know, this is sort of where I was coming from back then.
And I think what's also clear is just like the idea, and maybe it's because we're also in a printmaking program, but so much of like producing multiples and lots of things.
Yeah, I feel like that was my other error from grad school, is just wanting to make so much stuff that nobody could complain that I wasn't working hard.
It was
like,
fairly effective.
That matters at all.
But then I think, like, when Lou and I stopped being in the same town, we started quickly a mail collaboration. Like, not even a collaboration, we just started sending stuff back and forth to each other. I credit my Uncle Tony for that. Uncle Tony might be listening, but Uncle Tony sent me like postcards and cards like constantly through my adolescence and my early college years, and to this day. And so just sending things to people was always like what I did. But Lou reciprocated in a way that most people don't. Some do, but most people didn't. So this is some of the stuff that Lou sent to me, slightly antagonistic at times, part of our friendship. This is when I was learning how to raise and kill chickens. So Lou decided that this would be funny. I'm not sure what's going on there completely, but.
I think this is also when something to do with a joke about socks.
Yeah.
So you're a sock. So
it's an inside joke, but nevertheless, antagonism. And then there's like, you start to see, even when it's not our Colossus project, which you'll see the imagery from in a little shortly, the Colossus sort of like, and the narrative that we kind of build starts finding its way into some of the work, including this postcard of the Nubble, which is in Maine. I don't remember if Lou visited it, but I did for sure.
I have never seen it.
Anyway, so
I don't even know what you're talking about.
These postcards. And then the Colossus of the West. We are very interested now just in anything that's called the Colossus. Then there's these great notes that Lou and I exchange in the boxes of paintings and baseball cards. And then, of one of my favorites that he's ever sent me was this one. And he's mostly right. And I don't remember if he sent this to me when I was 25 or if I was 39, but it's pretty true.
It's applicable. Some things are just the truth, like yeah.
So Lou, this is stuff I sent to Lou.
Yeah, and this one will take a slightly I believe this is when you're using with that small camera.
Yeah.
What's it called?
It was a twin lens TLR, twin lens reflex.
Whatever. I don't. It's so
Don't
it's
care.
like
Who cares?
he had drawn the. This is when you were in Vermont, and that's the.
Right there, everybody.
I believe the mythical monster that lives in Lake Champlain.
Yeah, it's Champ of Lake Champlain.
Right.
And again, this will come back later too. But then there's just sort of like vast quantities of postcards, handmade postcards and things that we send back and forth to each other.
Yeah, so these ones obviously are from you. And some of them just like also doodles on the back of envelopes and things like that. And I generally keep all my mail anyway, so it's awfully convenient that I have all of this too. And these are like various altered postcards from whenever you've traveled.
Or not traveled.
Or not traveled.
But you know, I've always liked altering objects. I think Lou does too. Some of these, you can't see the humor. This is one of my favorites. I can zoom in a little bit. I love finding classics, like paintings of like, you know, postcards of like old paintings that are like an art institute or other like institutions. And I think that might be it. Is that? No, there's one more. So.
Yeah, these ones I think are probably more referencing specific Colossus ideas. But.
Yeah, that's it. So for me, and I'll breeze through this. I don't really have the clock in front of me, but there it is. I'll breeze through this. This is some other work that can be somewhat relevant in just terms of aesthetics. And then, you know, yeah, maybe that's about it. So like maybe a sense of mystery too, like trying to like insert magic into like my apartment. So I made these after grad school or after undergrad. These are some little objects that I would sort of like hide in my house. This is like a little kind of landmine or sort of thing that I put on a platform, and it's actually just on my couch. It's about the size of a $50. And then I would like go into my carpet and put little like satellites with little flowers sort of around them and burying them. And these would just be kind of squirreled around my house. Obviously I couldn't just leave them there all the time. But again, on my couch and on a wall by a door frame. And again, sort of like this idea of what was in my head when I was like a kid trying to create toys. It's like so much of what I do, at least, and Lou and I have been talking about this a lot, just sort of comes back to like trying to make what was in my head when I was 10. And I'll probably reference that one more time when we get to baseball cards or books. But so
yeah. You can just you can keep on the screen share after you go through here, and I'll just scroll down and I'll keep going.
Okay. And then this is actually directly related to the Colossus, but I found this book when I was cleaning out my grandma's house, my dad's old stereo equipment. And I just like scanned it in and changed the name of it to an interstellar communication device. And like underneath Pioneer, it says Division of Colossus Corp. And this is not really relevant yet, but it'll be relevant later. So maybe we'll just gloss over it for now. So here you go.
Yeah, so if actually you scroll ahead a couple. Yeah, so I guess I was going to address when I was in grad school. I worked obviously a lot on my own stuff, but also I guess out of maybe a little bit of guilt or maybe feeling a little isolated in Indiana, I had started some mail collaborations. We had been sort of, our studio had this huge pile of archival paper that was easy to kind of like trim and cut into a book. So I would just cut, you can sort of cut ahead here, or sorry, zip ahead. Maybe one more, get it. And so these are various spreads from those books where I just mailed them out to people. And the idea was I'd mail them out to people. They'd do whatever they want to it. They can never return it. I didn't care. Just send it to them. But like say, hey, add or subtract something from it and then send it back to me. And I'll work on it when I'm like, especially like I had the idea that I'm in my studio and I have like a wet brush or something else and just put it on there or put it on a book or whatever. And then when I felt like I was tired of it, it had been around too much, tape it up. Like if you skip ahead again, I think you can, maybe one more. Yeah, so I got these sort of like buildup of all these, I think this is one with Megan Hitton, a friend who I went to undergrad with. So I would just sort of keep them going and everything would just sort of goop onto these books. But then I also found that the downside, like this one, for example, this book I actually got back when I was in Baltimore later, but like one of the downsides was that you can only really work on like one spread at a time because the paint had to dry or whatever. So when I moved to, if you scroll ahead, yeah, there's an old one with Darwin Raymond, friend in Columbus. Skip ahead. Yeah, that's the front. And then one more. I'll get to, so when I got to Durham, I was working on a project with my friend Ben Fisher called Fort Grunt, which was its own collaborative project. That was about a 2-year project where we had a studio and did a lot of work together. I also decided to send out some packs of 25 drawings, and they're on chip, again, available resource. I had some chipboard available to me, so I just cut it up into 25. I think these are 8 by 10 or 8, or maybe 8.5 by 11. I forget exactly.
Or 8 by 10.
And sort of with the same idea that, like, when I was in Durham, I had a bunch of time to work in the studio, and it's like, oh, this is a chance to like reach out to people again, maybe try it a different way. And it sort of had the same effect where I probably sent like maybe 20 or 25 of these out. And I would say this one is one I did with Mark Rice. And between you and Mark are the only ones who really kind of set it back and forth a lot. I had a couple that got lost in the mail that the other artist was sure that they mailed it to me, but it never got there. And then others, I think there's they went back a couple times and the novelty wore off, and that's kind of how I feel like once it's out of my hands, I don't have to worry about it, So, and I think if you skip ahead, you get an idea of, just again, like the box is sort of wrapped with all this tape and gunk and everything. And so I also sent one to Micah, and I think that's a good jump right into the Colossus project.
And I just want to tell people, like, even though Lou said that, like, in grad school, he made a lot of work so that people wouldn't think he wasn't working hard, like that didn't matter. It's not like we like the Colossus really fixed that. Like, we just made a lot of stuff and we continue to make a lot of stuff. So we're going to try to get through it and talk about it. But like, you're also okay just like to interrupt. It's sometimes hard for me to see questions. I have a chat window up. The Q&A window is harder to bring up. So if you want to, maybe tonight, if you just want to throw things in the chat, Lou and I can both see them then and address them. Maybe we'll answer them. Maybe we won't.
We might read them. I don't know.
We'll just read them, just so people can hear them.
Yeah.
So here, I'll let you kind of talk about these a little bit. If you want.
Sure. So I think I counted. I went through the archive this week, and so these are the set of 20. They actually had only 24. Our friend Jerome stole one, and we never saw it again. I think he took it off of you, and it's been a nice running joke for him that he'll never give these back. Essentially went with these at the same idea that like you can just add or subtract or do whatever you're going to do to these, and then when you get tired of them, send them back and see what happens. And I think just judging by what I had in my Google Drive, I think they were sent back and forth about 20 times in the first 5 years, and then it really kind of slowed down after that because it was like certain ones got reworked a lot, and some of them resemble nothing where they started. I mean, guess where they started? I just spray painted number 1, 2, 3 on them, and so some of them are completely different, and some of them I feel like we kind of arrived at something interesting right off the bat and just decided to keep it. And it wasn't like, I don't think we were telling a story, or I had no real goals for any of the ones they sent out. It was just sort of like responding back and forth and seeing what happens. And like this, in addition to the postcards, was sort of like the main correspondence. And then sort of like these characters, sort of like this one is an example one that I feel like you can see the spray painted number, whatever number that, like 21 or something. And then I think you painted the deer in the round, and then I put the red in the thing, and I was like, okay, this one's good. Like I don't know what it means, but it's fine, at some level it's like it's pleasing the way it's laid out, the formally. And then some of these moves took a little longer to get to where they were going. And some probably could be still worked on. Like they're sort of unresolved, but at some point we just decide, I think once we started moving into the other projects of Colossus, I think we decided to let these kind of be as they are. And this is sort of like, I feel like this one's been the background of my phone for the last 10 years. Like there's certain satisfying layout of that one too.
Yeah, I always felt like this was a good like middle ground between you and me. I mean, that's the one thing, like I've tried to do collaborations with other people and sometimes they work. It's not like they all fail, but I think that one of the things about my collaboration with Lou started is that it was very open-ended, right? Like it was just cardboard. There was no expectation. We didn't have a goal. We weren't going to show him. And it was just a place for us to like kind of communicate as much as anything, but also just sort of make stuff. And at times in my life, it was, with all the moving, Lou and I both moved a lot. It was like the only thing I was making sometimes in terms of like artistic practice, because everything was in boxes, or my house was small, or my apartment was small.
Right.
But I think that, like, you know, I was aware of his Fort Grunt project, which was a big departure from his undergrad work. It was very colorful. There were characters in it. I've always been inclined towards like playfulness, narrative, characters, illustration. And so I think that, like, as we just started to pass these back and forth and we react to one another, this narrative, this kind of like sloppy sort of non-linear narrative just sort of emerged from the characters from here. And here's the deer again.
Yeah, and then I think this is where it starts getting some of the like sci-fi-ish thing that'll be sort of popping up, and sort of an interest in like bodily grossness, like little floating brains, and I think there were some balls in one of those somewhere. Cloud, like sort of like clouds that have evil intent, people in hazmat suits. Oh, hey. Hi, Karen.
So that's these. So I mean, oh, there's I felt like I went through them all, but I guess there's still ones I didn't gone through.
24.
Are you sure there's not more? Anyway. So there we go.
Yeah. So, and then I think this sort of where it takes a turn, like it's interesting, like I think with collaborating with Mark Rice, who I mentioned before, like that we've kind of completed it, and then we started a different one, and then we started a different, like we kind of went in different directions. This one sort of changed, sort of built on itself in a different way. Like, so I think somewhere along this line, along this project, Micah sent me like a thing of like 20 8x10 pieces of paper.
Yeah, I think slightly smaller, but yeah.
And then the first one was, yeah, and you had also gotten, I think, that postcard of the Champy, or where you drew Champy into the card. So I was like, you just sent them with no instruction whatsoever. I don't even know if we had to collaborate, but and I don't, I was like, oh, free paper, but like, or I think he's more 6x8, well, whatever. But so I decided to start with oh, Sam. So this is probably around.
This is Vermont, so it's after 2012.
2012. Okay. Yeah. So I was in Baltimore then, and yeah, you had either in Vermont or left.
Yeah, they started in Vermont for sure, because I remember working on them in my apartment there. I just don't remember when we started them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just try to give a start to something, and I think I don't know if we start scrolling through. This one ended up. I think this is about 190 panels. Wow.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of scroll relatively quickly.
But essentially thinking about some of the character. I mean, I was just sort of like, I was thinking about the characters that we sort of were drawing into these set of 24 drawings and trying to come up with an origin story for each of us, but also sort of, I don't know, sort of going back and yeah. And this is also, I think you'll notice the shift here. Obviously I'm doing the first whatever number of drawings this is, and then Micah, we're not adding to the drawings, but adding to the collection of drawings. And I don't know why I did this as ink drawings. Yeah. But that's what we did. So, and then so Micah picked it up from here.
And I think like with all of these things, like as you'll see if we get to the later ones, because there are a lot, we start to take them like, I don't know if seriously is the right word. Seriously, it feels like the wrong word, but like I definitely labored over some of them more later than I did on the early ones.
Uh-huh.
And I think this is also like, and this is going to be 100 in, but like this is essentially where baseball gets introduced into our collaboration.
Right.
So, I also have to really work on drawing Lou. This is the funny thing, because this is where my cartooning practice comes in, because so much of what I do is cartooning in my free time, my personal practice. But like, it's a little uncomfortable maybe to admit to other people around you, if you put them in one of your cartoons, like how
I mean,
much you draw them. Like you just have pages full of people that, and they don't know it.
I think I would have been more offended by the lack of a chin in that one, but I guess you got it. I don't know, like it's, it's where it's at now, but yeah. I mean, I had to draw my butt several times for this one, but yeah.
And I think the other thing, and like, and we're gonna get to like, maybe we will. I don't even know what time it is anymore. We're gonna maybe get
8:30.
It's 8:30 somewhere. The
Yeah.
semi-art serious ideas that are at least going through our heads while we're making these. I don't know if they manifest in the work. You and I have a couple different things that we focus on separately, but it's also just like the way Lou and I will antagonize each other also just shows up in the narrative.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I can hear my wife laughing in the other room as you say things like that.
Yeah. I guess I mean, do we want to, I guess we can just keep going through. I mean, I don't want
to, yeah. I think that though,
this is a good place to stop though.
This is a good place to stop. It
is on the website.
It is on the website. Let me go down to the bottom though, because this, like I said, this is where, for some reason, it keeps not letting me go to the bottom. This is where baseball comes in. First, this is Keith Hernandez. It ends up being, I believe.
Maybe. I feel like you also hit the crab off my head with a baseball bat.
Yeah, there's
right. Yeah.
Scorpion. So again, if you really want to read this, go back and take a look at it. But I think that was Keith Hernandez in the end, who was a first baseman for the Mets in the 80s. And so then when it got passed back to me, I just had this guy who really wanted to watch the Mets game. And then Keith Hernandez starts talking about Gary Carter, who was the catcher on the team, who had died of brain cancer after his career. It's really
hilarious.
It's hilarious, but it's also really embarrassing to say aloud because I never expected to share this, I think. And so they end up going to the Nubble, which is why we have Nubble postcards. So they go after the World Series in '86, they go to vacation in Maine together, I guess, which was the conceit. I mean, keep in mind, everybody, Lou and I aren't imagining sharing this with anybody at the time.
Right.
So then baseball becomes part of the narrative. Lou and I both like baseball. We both have shared references in baseball, yada, yada, yada. I think we can go back to projects now.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's where, I don't know if maybe I made this connection or not, but I think when I was doing the project with Ben, the Fort Grunt project, I had altered a few baseball cards to make them look like Globus. There was like a creature we had worked on called Globus that we had made a 8-foot long paper mache model of. And so we made like a card for it just as like a one-off thing. But then I felt like I remembered them and I was like, oh yeah, there it is. So this one's actually not Colossus card. And obviously in the end, not very satisfying as the cards go, but remembered that thinking about like either the paper that was in the studio or the chipboard that I also have like a shitload of baseball cards from when I was a kid. They're worth nothing. Like they have no value. They were so overproduced. Although they were bought with the idea that they would be worth something someday. They were an investment. But so it painted some cards and sent them to Micah, and I don't even know how many that were like in process, but we essentially just send a box, usually a small priority box mailer back and forth, I guess for the last 8 years. I guess I was starting like 2013 or
it's at least 8 years, because we also started that when I was in that apartment in Vermont. So it's about 8 years.
And these definitely have like the spirit, I think, of more of like when I was working on or starting a project, that like Micah could add something, I can add something back. We could pull a card if we decided. We have actually done a couple of sessions where we've tried to like edit to the exact which which ones are official finished cards. But there's just several thousand that are all in, like, I mean, I feel like they're floating everywhere. There's a bunch right behind me. And they're general. I would say that I said they would go with how we've worked before, in that like I don't know, I don't get too precious about them. And like if I'm working on something, or if I'm just focusing on these, I just sort of if I got green paint going, just sort of get a bunch of green ones going. If I want to focus on one and do a bunch of different things to them, some can be really simple, just hitting with some of their spray paint, some of them, and then they're all can sort of represent these sort of characters that we pulled out from the narrative of that comic. Which, like, I was like, in the end, like, we've talked about printing that as a book, but I don't think we keep thinking about it, and we're like, it's like, that's 190, that's however many pages that is. It's, I don't know, like, what's that, we'll get into that about like trying to figure out endpoints for this project. But I don't know, I feel like when you were in, I don't know, it was like maybe right after you were in Baltimore briefly in 2015, and then moved to Northwest Indiana. You had said, like, I could see just doing the cards forever. Like, I don't know if they need to be finished, or it's like, it is just this like back and forth. And I think there's definitely times when I'll look at them and sort through them and then put them away, and then it's like I'll take a break, but then like go back in. And I don't know, it's always kind of and I feel like that's where it's really maybe even more than the other ones, like starting to take on a language, like using like I'll do like a Micah move in my head that's like more like these kind of chunky lines and things, and then sometimes you'll get more painterly and like yeah. And I think we definitely got away more from like those ones that kind of incorporate more of the card.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to like there's a lot that sort of were based on like I mean, some of the cards are like portraits, like that, and some are more like a figure that was started painted over and then kind of just incorporated in some way into the yeah, it was just like a starting point of just like, I'll cover up this figure who's like stretching out at third base or whatever.
Well, and I think that like when we started talking about, Karen asked something. Or did she not ask it? This is so nice. I wish people were this nice to me when I was in this is all I really wanted.
Like great grad school.
I just wanted this kind of validation anytime I was in front of a bunch of people. I appreciate that. Thank you, Karen. I'm going to take credit for that. So Lou, you'll have to get a compliment elsewhere.
Okay.
So I think that when Lou and I were working together, and obviously I think when we first started talking about doing this presentation, like there was this idea that maybe we would organize the presentation in groupings of the types of cards we make. But I think that also kind of like gets away from some of the things that are at least in my head. So when Lou and I were in Baltimore together and we started looking at spaces where we could like show these cards, but not in a gallery, but like if we just rented a storefront and created a collectible shop. Because all the things Lou talked about, like I have 1,000 of these or thousands, because they were supposed to be an investment, because that's how they were marketed to kids in the 80s and 90s, and even now, really. And they're worthless, and it kind of undermined like actually in some ways enjoying the cards for what they were. It's like at the time, which are hilarious when you read the backs, and then also just sort of like fun because we felt compelled to collect them. That's when I really started thinking about them as like in their totality is where there might be some more meaning. This idea that we sort of completely altered these, this huge mass of artifacts from our childhood, and they weren't static anymore. And because things, I mean, I think I spend a lot of time thinking about things and my relationship to them and like how they fill my life, and like, are things, static? Are they malleable both in physicality as well as meaning? And so when I think about the card shop, it really starts to get to that idea that it brings me at least to this idea of of the thing itself and how we got those things, why we were attracted to buy those things.
Right.
And I guess I start to go to a place too where it's like, and this is why I alter objects sometimes, is that I feel like it's not healthy for things to stay the same. Like, I don't want things to stay the same. I don't want them to stay perfect and pristine. I don't, you know, I don't.
It's a good segue. The plaques.
Oh, you want me to bring those up?
Sure. Well, just like thinking about how, like, at least also thinking about my associations with like the idea of the baseball card as like an investment, or that some cards are worth more than others, like which when we were thinking about the shop idea, like you know, which like these are plaques that some of these are from my growing up, some of these were from yours, and I found some others, but this is supposed to be like, we made you would had your dad make these for free at work for us.
Yeah,
like 35-year-olds should be doing, having their dad make stuff for free for them. 35 at the time. I know I'm not 35. But essentially, I mean, I don't know if you can see on that one, but I mean, some of these other ones, like the back, I mean, these are pressboard, you know, with like, oh, it's wood or fake marble or something. But and it's also just like a piece of one of the plastic card protectors, literally just glued to it. And this is supposed to be how you're like, this is your like fanciest card, your expensive card that you're putting on your wall and showing to people, which really like the idea, if we were going to do the shop, of like how to elevate some cards, or which ones were considered finished, which ones aren't, and then which one, you know, like I almost went through and was gonna make my own plaques. I was like, out of wood. I was like, why would I make those? Like, it really is about kind of like, I don't know, this, but there is also this sort of like clear plastic. I mean, I've got plenty, like, where there's all different arrangements of them and how to like protect the cards and let them not get damaged, but they're all obviously they're all damaged now. And this is obviously one we combined one of the original Colossus prints with. Yeah. And then like, yeah, like this one, which I think was a gift from my aunt, which was, I was a Yankees fan growing up. You hear the booze in Baltimore, but that was, I think this was like the first time, I think when the Yankees won in '96 or something, she had made a plaque for me, and I was like, I kept it all these years. I was like, perfect, this is perfect, you know. And we had the plaque, the bottom part made, and this was actually a fun one. This is why I think I worked with Miriam on this, was like trying to figure out how to like go with a grid on these, because I think there is, I mean, when I've talked with friends about the cards, or if I've had them somewhere, if I brought them somewhere to like work on them while we're just hanging out or something, and be like, oh, these are all so different. Like, there's some that definitely, you know, maybe early stages definitely have like a might have a similar vibe, but everything's got they all have something different going on in them, different colors and different like variances of like being comic booky or abstract or patterns, or yeah, like that mix, plus like the characters sort of woven in from the comics.
And I think it's one of the hard things too. And I really would, you know, it'd be great if somebody wanted to ask a question and like stop me from rambling. But
I love talking. It's my favorite thing.
Spending time with you, Lou. And
yeah.
I think it's really hard for us. Like when I look at these, like I get enamored with them sometimes. So I make a mark I like, or Lou sends one back that I find kind of funny. But then like, and we pull some out and say like, no more, they're done. But then I think there's a whole lot of them that are fine, and they're not really supposed to be viewed as individual cards. They really should be viewed like in a card shop, like on the wall in plastic holders on rails, because that's the aesthetic that we're sort of tapping into. And I also think it's like that experience that we're in some ways trying to recreate. Maybe not, maybe we're not, but like I feel like that's, for better or worse, and like if I didn't recognize it for years, like that feeling, that experience of walking into a comic shop or a baseball card shop, and that aesthetic of like packaged, mass-produced items is what is essentially like informed a good portion of the work that I have made in my life. I mean, I remember, and I told Lou this recently, like I remember, and I'm sure many people have variations of the story, but I remember being like 9 saying, I'm going to make a baseball card today, coloring with crayon on a piece of paper, wrapping saran wrap around it and stapling it, and then being genuinely mystified that it didn't look like, it was like no aspect of production was like I couldn't comprehend any of it. And so much of what you and I
That'd be a
do
cute
now,
story if you were 5 in that story, but it's a little sad.
you're too old. Should we workshop that? And do I need to? It's okay. We can work it out here. This is like doing the circuit before we sell out a theater.
Yeah. Just, yes, and keep going.
No, thank you. But then like Lou and Lou, I don't know, do you have them next to you or a card? Like to that end, when we finish a card now, we had custom holographic stickers made to sort of like authenticate the finished product. Yeah, there they are. So we have the Colossus logo on. I mean, like, no matter what, even if we're being as messy as possible, and even if we don't know the outcome of these things, and even if we in some ways reject like being duped as kids, like I still can't escape wanting to make that thing that was in my head.
Well, also it's like, I don't know, there was definitely a point where it turned in the like 89, 90, where like Upper Deck and other companies were making like higher end cards and they had holograms. Why? Like I don't know what it proved. It's like, oh, there's extra value in this. So it's like, oh, we can upscale these paintings by putting a hologram sticker on them. Yeah. So where's a good? I mean, I feel like this is sort of where the cards are always omnipresent now.
Yeah, I mean, I think
like,
for me, it's like, and we talk about this a lot. I feel like someday we have to show these in a shop. Right. And like, that's the eventual end of the cards. But also on the other hand, I don't necessarily feel like the cards ever have to end. I still feel that way. Like for the most part, you and I haven't started other aspects of this collaboration since the cards started. I mean, I've made some peripheral things. We go back and forth. We do a few little things, but we haven't really done a big project, like started a new sort of thing that we pass back and forth.
Right. Like, I don't know if we ever thought we wanted to just have like a box of 800, like that was usually, was it like top sets were like 792 cards. Obviously with all the paint on them, they're not going to fit in a box, but should there be like definitively, and then that one's done. Yeah, I think that we were working on these too. Well, I guess you go to the coins.
I'm going to show the
coins. Kind of a fun side.
I love these. So these were based off of obviously characters Lou and I made. They're Colossus coins. They're repurposed. I mean, I guess repurposed is the right word. I don't know the right. It's melted down like silver and gold that I had from, either that was given to me or was from family members. And so it's again, like these things like can, and then they were designed by the Colossus, Lou and I, but they were fabricated by a friend of mine, Carrie Ann Quick, who's who's going to be an Art and Focus guest on May 20th, but she's a metalsmith at San Diego State University. And she made them happen. So again, like it's like, this isn't quite the same as as altering a postcard or a baseball card, because it's kind of a raw material that is always meant to be melted down and sort of like reimagined. But I think this was made because I don't know if Lou and I had this conversation about like other collectible items or if I just got it in my head, but like just this idea that we're going to fill a shop with collectibles, or we're making collectibles now. That's what we do. This is the iteration of the Colossus. We just make collectibles.
Right. I think I sent you a coffee mug. I made it a paint your own pottery plate or something.
You definitely did. We've had that idea about various kinds of merchandise to fill a collectible shop, but it's just never happened.
I think, yeah.
Does anybody else have any ideas? I mean, you don't have to be shy.
Anyone want to finish this project for us?
How can we wrap this up? But
well, I think you remember you said this had started too as like another sort of like light investment from like uncles or whatever and I feel like we had talked about it and I was like, oh, I have all these like bronze coins I collected from when like we went on family vacations in the 80s to like national parks, and like I still have them. I don't know what to do with them, but like they could be melted down and you're like, well, maybe let's not go too far, but it's just like there is other I collected other stuff. Like I think to the point where my younger sister like refuses to collect things.
Yeah.
I think they heard she liked horses, and and she's just like got so many horse things that like, yeah.
And I know, like, I just, oh yeah, look, there she said, Tony said no, no collections.
Yeah.
But like, that's the thing that's a big
You got
deal
a Q in there.
for Lou, is that I like
Oh,
is
we got a question. Have you ever considered doing unboxing of your painted cards like collectors do on YouTube with their new packs?
I can't get questions up, so you'll have to handle the question.
Well, I'll read it again since I probably garbled it. It says, have you ever considered doing unboxings of your painted cards like collectors do on YouTube with their new packs? And the answer to that is we have.
And Lou did a hilarious one, and Micah did a rubbish one, but
it's 14 minutes long. So if I play it now, we can just play out the talk entirely.
maybe not.
There has been, I mean, I guess I will get to that where it's like recently there's been some new, obviously everyone, I mean, there's the NFT thing and whatever. And then even like I don't think they're not quite like that, but the NBA has like, you can collect like little video JPEGs of your, instead of like, and it's like you collect them and you pay for them. So we've sort of like thought about like current collector culture, and that like there's like a value being assigned again to something that's pretty even more ephemeral. It's not, it's not to sound like an old timer, but it's just like, it's like part of the appeal of still getting to do this is that we get, I'm not working on my computer that I'm on all the time for work since we've been home for a pandemic for a year. Like that's the least appealing thing to me. But we did do we have the overhead shot. I don't know. I don't think we never uploaded it anywhere, did we?
I don't.
Probably for the best.
I would rather not talk about mine. It was
okay.
And like, do you like? I'm not going to put you on the spot, but like I am. But you can like just shrug it off. Like, do you want to talk about collecting culture at all? Like things that you've sort of read or thought about?
I mean, I feel like that was about it. Was just like sort of noticing that there's these newer waves of trying to repackage.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and that like the cards that seem to be sell for a lot, they're like Tom Brady rookie card, something that were like purposely made to be so rare that they had to be, they had that there was like a built-in value to them by their scarcity. And I guess that's, I mean, when we think about like the shop idea, it's like, oh, could you just have like the random ones that never quite feel done, just in boxes that you can sort of flip through like you would at I mean, I guess I'm also like thinking back to like CD shops too, and like clacking through the cases.
I was going to show, since we kind of have a couple minutes and I'm not seeing any additional questions yet, I was going to show a couple pages, in progress pages from the comic. So I think one of the things that's also just, if we're going to talk about collaboration, so, Lou and I have obviously used this as a way to stay in touch with one another for 15 years. And it's really, that's been great. But it's also, through collaboration, it's been like a way to keep me sort of active. It kind of feeds its way into my own sort of, my sort of personal practice. This is a comic book that I had kind of finished, but then like started redrawing. And it was based all on Lou's and my collaboration. And so sometimes, and we didn't show any of those, but like sometimes we would take like one of the original paintings and use that as like a source material to create, like in this case, a cover for a magazine or for a comic. I've used it to create like, I took a class in offset lithography and I used it to create like a zine as well as a poster. So we have this Colossus poster and this Colossus zine. And there are times where like the card was fun to make and I liked it, but once I sort of scanned it, turned it into like a grayscale image and then maybe played with contrast and stuff, like I liked it even more. It was really where I blew it up and it was like twice the size as it was when we originally did it. So in this case, this is just sort of in a way that the other ones, our other parts of our collaboration aren't. Like I tried to take everything that we put into it, all of like the characters, all of like sort of the aesthetic, and I just tried to create like a 60-page comic about like Lou and me as being sort of like ineffectual lab workers, and then like opening up a Colossus gate where this like flying brain comes through, And
This also have a reference to the lump that I used to have on my back.
yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to bring that up, but
Well, I mean, I feel like there was a point where you were drawing about like a brain sneaking under my skin in the comic, and I was like, I look at it, like I had like a tumor removed from my back, and it like felt like it looked like a little brain. You're like, oh, did you? And you're just like like you're already like going to the next part of the story. But
that was exciting for me.
It was validating. Yeah.
I wasn't going to share your personal medical history, but
Yeah, well, getting older, lumps and bumps. That's what they say.
Somebody says it, I'm sure.
I guess I was thinking, do you want to talk? I did pull up the old Colossabilities document.
You can talk about. We have 4 minutes and no.
4 minutes. So yeah, the one thing we were thinking about when we wanted to do the shop was like, what if, I don't know, Colossus is just a big scam, so that it would have like iterations that would move from one to the next. So the first one would have been that Colossus shop where it was like a mom and pop store, and then kind of shift very rapidly from that to Colossus Corp, which would be kind of the expanded behemoth mail order internet, no bricks and mortar, like wouldn't even have to have a shop. It would just be kind of imply that they're just monster, basically like Amazon. And then it would shift to Colossus College, where it sort of be maybe like a self-accredited correspondence school or something, where it's just like, is this a school or not? And then move on to I don't know. I feel like there's some there I was like a little, I don't know if I need to read them all now.
I don't think you need to read them all. I think
I feel like there was one where I was going to make like an art council. Now I work for an art council, so I'm not going to go there. But like one with a Fraternal Order of Colossus, that could be like a Shriners organization. We can go to like a parade in like the little cars or something. The Commonwealth of Colossus, that would be a minor outlying territory. Although again, like since January 6th is probably like the idea of seceding from unions, probably not.
Yeah, it doesn't
an
age
idea. Colossus Spa would be like a fitness craze of some sort. Colossus, the law firm. Colossus Studios, an architecture firm. Then the Church of Colossus, which would be the penultimate, and then obviously the Colossus Foundation, which would be to preserve and promote the good works of Colossus.
Which we just sort of.
I think there was a point where we were really kind of thinking about the iterations of that, and I think we even may have proposed that as part of like a grant when we tried to do the shop while you were in Baltimore, which was probably not a great. Oh, cool! You're gonna do all of that, but like, yeah, I guess it goes back to like talking about it being like running galleries and being an art admin, and really I love working with artists, but then it's like I don't see a place for a project like that in a gallery. We talked about it where like, what if it was like part of a gallery and you had like essentially like the wood paneling that's like behind you as like a section and a case, and it was just like a slice of a shop.
Were you just making fun of my house there?
Yeah, but like that the idea would be that you I don't know, that was like, it'd be too ironic like by being in the gallery, it's like quote marks around it or something. And I don't know, I think when we originally thought of it, that would be something that you would kind of stumble upon maybe, or you would go with some knowledge, but that like it would be complete.
I'm still trying to convince Lou that we should just rent a storefront in some random Midwestern town and meet there for a week. And just
right, or like in a strip mall or something, yeah, like just like it doesn't have, it could be the more nondescript the better maybe, because I feel like that was at least my memory is in growing up in Youngstown, Ohio, like the card shops were in pretty random places, because it was part of the scam. You had to have low overhead, right? Scamming little kids. Did we get one more question? Nope. Do you have advice for other artists who are building websites for their work? What successes or problems have you found on the way? I would say don't do we had kind of just a funny question. We purposely I just used like a WordPress. We were actually hoping to find a way to do. I just don't have the patience for it to do like a Dreamweaver site that had like the old gray buttons and like really 90s it out. like the beginnings of the internet, but like uh if you are, I mean, I feel like any of the other like Squarespaces or anything like those kind of things are fine and you don't spend time with it, but I would say you actually, it's a good idea to at least have something there, just because it's my experience, like people apply for things, or as being an admin, like go apply for things and you go look for more, you try to find their work, and if you can't find it, like I don't know, like we're doing a artwork purchasing project through my job for a law firm, and we're doing a lot of research and trying to find some artists, and like could not find readily find images. And I was like, I could go out of my way to try to get them, but like it's some, like I only had so much time. And I was like, well, I mean, I guess that's a lesson to try to document your work as well as you can. And I feel like actually our website, that's some good examples of maybe not the best way to do it, but even like a
Yeah.
decent iPhone shot is better than nothing. But that, like, if you can really document your work well, it's going to make a difference in the long run. Like,
I think that is worth pointing out about our website, was that there was an intentional effort to make it not look flashy, and we did about as, like, we were trying to not take advantage of any of the features of like ready-made website sites as much as possible, and that
right,
we really did want it to look like a website from the 90s, but neither like Lou and I have sort of the HTML background or like the patience, so we just defaulted to this. But I'll second that. You know, like I've been working on an IAC project, and we're just trying to like figure out what we can ask for from people, and like what we need to make decisions about applications, and
even
you need
honestly, even though I feel like I'm still, I mean, I guess I will say I'm like willing to go try to find it on like Instagram.
Right.
And I'm not going to go through like every social media to try to find this person's work. There are definitely some, like in Baltimore, there are definitely some artists who like almost exclusive, like they crank out work and they're just showing it all the time on Instagram. And at least you can get an idea, you know, it's not formalized or anything, but it's like, it's there. You can find it on the internet, you know.
And I don't really want to, like, I don't think I should be giving the definitive website advice, but I do think that if you're just looking for a way to kind of put a presence out there for applications or for a business, there's worse things you can do than to use a Squarespace template. It'll make your work look at least like other websites, right? I mean, so.
This is where we segue into the podcast, and this is like we're reading the ads or something.
Yeah. This is actually where we segue into ending the program, because it's 8
Oh,
o'clock.
this is a terrible segue.
Yeah, this is not, I mean, this is fine. Like we do what we do, and I enjoy it, and you know, the people who tune in enjoy it. It's fine. But yeah, we're not gonna have any endorsement deals, Lou. Lou, I want to thank you for wasting an hour of our time and the people who tuned in. I think they're appreciative.
Are we blaming the people who tuned in?
I'm gonna actually stop the share real quick, because I know there are some people who came. Let me turn on the spotlight so that we don't. Oh no, we're both spotlight still. So you know, I see a few people I know, and it's kind of fun to know that some people I know tuned in. It's actually really neat to see that Sam and Karen are watching, because I haven't seen them since your wedding. I don't normally do this during these, but it's nice to know that they're watching. So hello, Sam and Karen.
I thought you were about to blow a kiss or something like that.
Should I do that? I'm not going to do that.
You can do it.
Lou,
this is technically your job, though, right?
Technically it's my job. Before I give the last reminder about our programming, I wanted to know if you wanted to wear a wig or anything before.
No, I'm good.
You good? Okay. So then all I'm going to say is that as per usual, this will be on our website by 10 a.m. Monday morning, if you want to, for some reason, share it with your friends, or suggest that anybody goes and checks it out. You can also just go to COLOSSUS.
It will be on YouTube.
It will be on YouTube.
It just wasn't on YouTube.
I don't understand what happened. It's beyond me. It's fine. Every time it's worked perfect except for tonight. So I think that maybe I just was a little embarrassed about you. You didn't even shave.
I didn't.
So Marcia Carson will be joining us in a couple weeks on April 22nd. I always forget that. April 22nd. She'll give a much more professional presentation than Lou and I did, and it'll be informative. If you enjoyed the work, and I hope you did, colossus.com is our website. Colossus was already taken, so we couldn't take Colossus. So we
And if
just,
you cash app us $20, we'll send you a card.
yeah, and we'll send you.
Again, it's a scam. Yeah.
Anyway, Lou, thank you. Everybody, thank you for watching tonight. I hope this was at least mildly enjoying. Take care. Good night.
All right. That's it.